Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the Home Weather Office. It is now Tuesday morning. It is the 14th day of January, 2025, and this is the morning briefing coming to you from the Home Weather Office. And as I look out the window, it's a nice morning. It's been a cold morning, but it is a good-looking morning, and it's going to be another nice day. Our dry pattern is going to continue through Northern California. I'm going to give a little perspective on that. We'll look at the winds in Southern California, which are going to be an issue, but right now, this morning, things look okay. And we'll look down the road to see if there is going to be any chance of this dry pattern changing anytime soon. So I'm going to start with a little bit of perspective. And I'm going to show you something that I may have shown you last year, but certainly not something I look at on a daily basis, but something I look at every couple of weeks. This is something called the 8-station index. Now, to be fair, this is an index for the Northern Sierra precipitation. And if you look up here in the corner, it's made up of 8 stations that go from the area around Mount Shasta all the way down to Highway 50. So this takes in all of the headwaters of the Sacramento River, from the American River through the Yuba, the Feather, etc. So all of the areas that contribute to the water that eventually makes its way into the Sacramento River. And so the area shaded in blue is an average sort of a year, so that by the time you get into May and June, you're up here around 53 inches of water. And there are all sorts of other years on here. The older years are all smoothed out, but the more recent years do show an accurate way of the way the year went. And the blue line, this is the way this year is going. So as you can see here, we had that big boost to our water supply in November. Then there was a pause. Then we had more rain in December, and now we are in another one of these pauses. Nothing unusual about that. Even in the very wet year, this green line is 2016, 2017. There were times when it didn't rain, but that's the wettest year for the 8-station index. Now, for those of you saying, wait, I thought we had some wetter years like 22 and 23. Keep in mind, again, this is just for the Northern Sierra. We've had other years that were bigger in the Southern Sierra, so I'm just focusing on the Northern Sierra. And so if you quibble about the 2016, 2017 being the wettest year, it's the wettest year for this part of the state. The point that I want to make is that in every year, we have these long pauses. So let's take a look at 2020, 2021, which was the third driest for this index. So you see this long pause here, and then a period of wet, then a little bit of a pause, then a little bit more here, and then a big one when we got into April and May. And even in 22, 23, a big wet period in January, then a pause, a little bit of rain in early February, then a long pause, and then a very wet March and April. So the point here is that while we have the pause right now, and we are still above average, so right now the average is down in here around 22 inches and we're up around 28. We're likely going to see this get to average because the next couple of weeks is still going to be dry, and we may even kind of get over into here with this line. But we're still ahead of last year's pace and not all that far behind the pace we had in 2022, 2023 that ended up being pretty wet. So this pause like we had right in here, it's not unusual, and it could last into early February even before we start to see these lines start making a vertical push once again. So if you look at this year, 82, 83, this has all been smoothed out. This is not the way a normal year goes. Every year has wet periods, dry periods, wet periods, dry periods, and right now we are in a dry period where that line is flattening out. All right, let's see. What else do I have for you here this morning? Oh, all right, let's jump ahead to the wind in Southern California. It's going to be windy again, and I know this is making all sorts of headlines. This is this morning, actually. The focus of the wind today is going to really be in Ventura County. Now, there was a fire that started there last night called the Auto Fire, and I'll tell you, I found some information saying it was contained, some information that said it was still burning. Tough to say, but when I looked at the satellite, let's go ahead and take a look at the satellite. You'll see that there isn't anything in the way of a big smoke plume here coming off of any of the fires that are burning, which is great news. And you can also see, if you look up here in Northern California, we have this flow. Look at the way the clouds are moving. The clouds that are currently going over the valley, notice how they're going offshore. So that is an indication of the overall flow, both at the surface and aloft, that is offshore. So what we're going to see is the wind down here pick up mostly during the day tomorrow. This is the latest CanSAC. So that's this morning. Let me go ahead to this afternoon. Actually, it's this evening, still offshore, but not really gusty, but not really in LA County, more in Ventura County into the mountains, a typical Santa Ana event. Now we get into the day tomorrow. This is a Wednesday morning, and now we have that good flow offshore, impacting areas from, let's say, roughly Malibu to the north into Ventura County, and once again in the mountains. And while this is going to make a lot of headlines today and tomorrow about, strong winds once again, keep in mind that these winds are typical Santa Anas, not the extreme Santa Ana that we saw last week. This is going to be more typical, and it does look as though the biggest fires don't have much in the way of hotspots. The Eaton fire and the Palisades fire. This is tomorrow afternoon. Same thing. And then as we get into, let's see how far out this model goes. Get into Wednesday evening, those winds start to decrease. This is as far as it goes. This is into late Wednesday night. Those winds decrease. So it does look as though there will be a round of north winds, but as long as we don't have any new large fires start, I think we might be able to get through this. And again, without any big smoke plumes coming off the fires this morning, you can see that things are in much, much better shape than what we have been seeing recently. So yeah, the Eaton fire, the Palisades fire, not putting up big columns of smoke despite the fact that the humidity is still low and the winds are offshore. The firefighters appear to be doing a really, really good job with that. All right, let's take a look at the overall pattern and, well, if we're ever going to get any rain. And for that, I'm going to go to the favorite precipitable water out here across the Pacific. All right, so if you haven't looked at this before, what we're looking for is moisture to come our way. And we're looking across the Pacific. This is Alaska, that's the Aleutians, California is right here. And you're looking for these areas that the moisture surges up. This is where you have a lot of water in the atmosphere. These areas that are brown means that there is no water in the air. So this will cover out a couple of weeks. And as you can see, this is getting into Friday. We still have the dry north flow here, which means it's not going to rain. Any moisture is well out here in the Pacific. So now we're through the weekend. Still no sign of an atmospheric river coming our way anytime soon. This is next Monday. So now we're out a week from now. This is into Tuesday afternoon. There's moisture out here, but it's not coming our way. It's not organized. The overall ridgy pattern is still here. Let's go into the end of next week. There are some indications that we may see some showers maybe around the 26th. A low developing here, a little touch of moisture coming in. This is around the 24th, 25th, 26th. That line kind of falls apart, but this is well out into fantasy land. The 26th, so 12 days from now, there may be some light rain, and then it gets replaced once again with dry flow. And I can show you, let's see, no, not that one. Okay, let's do it this way. Let's take a look at just see what sort of precipitation this comes up with. So let me just change the sectors here. I'll go to here and then here. Sorry about that. I usually have this all loaded up. All right, so now let's take a look at the precip for the west. Oh yeah, because there was another thing I wanted to show you here, is that next Monday, it looks like the gradient really tightens up quite a bit. Not so much on this run. The 0Z, I should say the 6Z run did. Hang on a second. Here we go. Helps if you're on the right run. All right, let's see if that gradient tightens up that I saw. Yeah, right here. This is next Monday. maybe a gusty north wind event for Northern California, but again, we wouldn't be so worried about fire. Southern California, nothing. But as you can see, we're dry. We're dry. We should be out to the 27th. So yeah, this model doesn't want to do anything in terms of precipitation. So yeah, even that little low off the coast doesn't look as though it wants to do anything for us. So yeah, let me do one more way. Total precip accumulation. This is the next 2 weeks basically. Total precip accumulation, I mean, over 2 weeks, this says the north coast might get 1/3 of an inch of rain, nothing in the valley, traces of rain down here. So, for those of you that work outdoors, contractors, those that are working on my yard, the next 2 weeks, the rest of this week, all of next week, still looks dry. For skiers, I've heard from some of you that said that, we could use some new snow. It just doesn't look as though it's going to happen the next couple of weeks. So more of this cool morning, nice afternoon sort of a pattern. Maybe some gusty north winds early next week. So relatively quiet, but as I showed you with that 8-station index, it isn't unusual for us to get into these long pauses as we go through the rain season. You just hope that the pattern doesn't last too long, but I've seen it last a long time, but it seems like somewhere in the 4 to 6 week range doesn't seem that unusual, which would put us into mid-February before this pattern changes again. All right, that's everything I have for you on this Tuesday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.